tonight the theme is about owning your space during the probation. So we'll help you understand what's expected and then how to adopt and how to turn those 90 days into what we call your launch pad. I believe you might have seen choppers taking off. So that's a launch pad, ideally. And the moment you take off, you can go as far as your wings can take you. If it's a scenario of a plane, as far as your fuel can take you. So it's very important to be on the right launch pad, right? So we are going to cover a couple of things, right? So we'll understand what's the purpose of probation, and then we're going to talk about how to adapt to the company culture. Is very important. It's key to how your probation is going to move or proceed, because company culture, you can hear some HR professions saying, this guy is culture fit. Joel is a culture fit guy. He just blends in and the company culture is in him. Something about managing expectations and communications. So if you are taking your notes, this is the time. We're also going to talk about time management and organization. At the same time, we'll be talking about prepping for that confirmation or for that review. And then how do you build trust and credibility? Another thing we're going to talk about. The final thing we might also talk about, but definitely we'll talk about, don't be worried. So we'll be talking about owning your career journey with the confidence, right? So we have, on this session, remember we have the chat. Feel free to interact on the chat. Mary Nduta, I see you. Angela, I see you. I can see someone saying, what makes me excited is I'll be able to put my skills into practical and also learn from seasonal personnel. Awesome. Angela, you're saying you are new, you're facing a lot of challenges on how to balance. Don't worry, we got you covered. You'll hear a lot of insights on how to just manage that. So don't worry, we have the right people here. So I told you, I promised, I have an awesome panel, or I have awesome people, very insightful industry experts, subject matter experts in that case around this area. So we're going to introduce our speakers. So a round of applause just before I bring them in. Just do a round of applause on the chat, or rather on the reactions. Let's show them that indeed, karibuni sana, our panel. We are happy to have you here. So I'll start with the newest person on this session. Anne, you'll tell us about your job and then you'll answer a quick question for us. But first of all, Anne, just introduce yourself and then I'll ask you something interesting. The floor is yours, Anne. Karibu sana.
Okay, thank you so much, Joel, and thank you for the opportunity. I'm so honored to be here. My name is Anne Bahati. I love calling myself a transformational HR leader. So I currently work with the Current Country Club as the head of HR, and I just can't wait to delve into this very underrated topic. Asante sana.
Okay, Anne, before you go, what is your biggest lesson during your first probation period? In a few words.
My biggest lesson was you have to own your space. You have to quickly learn and own your space. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you settle, the sooner now you start adding value. They start seeing that you're bringing something tangible to the table.
Wow. That's awesome. Thank you for that. Another round of applause for Anne. We've taken something already. Myself, I'm already learning. Awesome. Now, our next speaker, this is someone who, she carries a lot of weight on her shoulders. She's one of our own from BrighterMonday. She's already smiling. Rose, take it away.
Thank you, Joel, and for that very, very nice semi-introduction. And it's really good to have this session today, and I'm really glad that we have a lot of folks who are listening in, and I hope that you can get something from this session. So My name is Rose Mende. I'm head of recruitment at BrighterMonday, and I usually say that I'm a professional matchmaker. What that means is that I match companies and people who are looking for opportunities, what we call jobs. So it's like just ensuring that that matchmaking process is done, efficiently, properly, and that everyone feels valued in the process. So I really enjoy doing that, and I'm happy to advance this conversation and delve into how we can ace the probation period.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rose. You mentioned something, professional matchmaking. Sounds interesting. I'll not delve into that. But what was your biggest lesson during your first probation period?
So my first probation period, let me just start by saying I didn't want to be employed. So getting this first job, I got it as an intern. It was an internship, just so that, if I did well, then I would be promoted to be someone permanent in the organization. And I remember the thing that I enjoyed most was I actually immersed myself in the position, which is what Anne has referred to, owning the space. I just did my best. I was like, this is it. I've been asked, these are the tasks I've been given. I'm just going to do my best. And I think that's something that I've carried along in the places that I've worked, even after that. That, owning your space means that you also do an excellent job, even in those 3 months that you have to prove yourself, or in those 3 months that you have to gain a bit of experience. Just immerse yourself and do your best.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Indeed, if someone is on the session right now, I believe you've captured that it will take you a long way. Remember what you talked about, the launch pad. That's your launch pad to your career success and what's to come next. Awesome. As we proceed, just to mention, I believe, or I understand the chat can get a bit crowded. So if you have any questions, just go and navigate to Q&A. Just drop the question there. It's easier to track it. But any other conversations, reactions, we can always do them on the chat. So for any questions, just do them on Q&A, and we'll be revisiting that from time to time. We'll be checking it out to respond to your questions. This one is for the chat. What was your biggest lesson? Or rather, what's something you wish someone told you before you started your job or before you started that probation? This is to the audience. Just type it on the chat. I already see some interaction. Someone is asking, how do I gain trust from my boss who is having trust issues? Maybe it's someone who was there before. We'll address that, but I believe in our conversations, we should be able to pick that at some point, right? Someone saying about opportunities. Awesome. We'll be talking about that in a while, but stick through the session. But let's now begin. Let's just dive deep, or because you're starting from the deeper side of this discussion and uncovering whatever we have to talk about today. We're going to talk about your first 90 days. So how do you win? And we'll start this off with Anne. So can you tell us from an employer's perspective, what's the purpose of probation really? It will really help us understand what's the purpose of probation from your perspective as the employer in this case. Over to you.
There must be synchrony in terms of expectation on both ends. So in a nutshell, the probation period actually is a testing period. These two parties aligned, and in this case, it's the new hire and the employer. Is this relationship going to be the way we had thought about it? And I know majority of the people at probation as a testing period from the eyes of the employer. But in the real sense, it's also for the employee to come and get a real-time chance to explore what the employer has to offer, what the employment environment is. So in a nutshell, it can be a transition period for both. Remember, you're just getting to know each other. You're getting to know the strengths and the capabilities from both ends. You're getting to know this role that this employee is actually taking up. Are they up to the task? It's also for you to test the culture as an employee, to test how do these people do their things. Am I capable to adjust to how they do their things, their values, the general vibe that is there? And also for the employer to check, is this person that I've brought on board, are they aligned to our values, to our culture? Can they just fit in? It's also an opportunity for both the employer and also the employee to give each other feedback, in the sense that to make the job be done better, or even to make the employment environment to be better. It's the opportunity for the employer to give feedback to the employee in how they view them in terms of their skills, their capability, and how they behave themselves. And also it's an opportunity for just both parties to have a mind shift, to know that I am in this environment. It is different from what I am used to. It's probably the first time that I am coming here, so I better get going. I better just get my act together and get going. And also for the employer, it's for them to know that it's this person who's taking up this particular role. They might not be the same as the previous person, so I better get used to working with them. So in a nutshell, the probation period is actually really critical. And that's why even if we look at our labor laws, it is actually embedded in the same. There's a provision for that. It allows that, yes, you can have a testing period for both of you. And in cases where either of the parties is not comfortable to continue with that working relationship, there are stipulated ways in which they can terminate that relationship. Over back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much. You've really explained it well. If I was a layman, I didn't understand what probation is. You've really put it into perspective that now we understand where we are heading. I'll ask you a second question before just getting back to Rose. What do you think are some of the challenges that come around when you're trying to adapt to a new workplace? Something about workplace cultures and team dynamics. What do you have to say around that?
So some of the challenges that an employee in a new workplace actually has to navigate through is, number one, some of us, the soft skills actually fail us. You know, the moment you go into an organization, the first thing that you need to do is literally read the room. Just sit and observe what is going on, who is who holds the butter to your bread. So how do things get to be done around here? All these equipment that are here, how do I go ahead, utilize them? So one of the things that some of us fail to do is just to sit back, observe, and absorb. Because the moment you're able to do that, the next thing is you're able to navigate through the work dynamics and the challenges and the tasks and everything. So some of us just want to get in and get started. That one we will learn along the way. Then the other thing is we fail to ask questions. Remember, you're new. Even if you're coming into a similar organization, into a similar role, this is not the same as where you're coming from. Even if you're coming from a different role, that means that there are some things that you will not understand immediately. That means that there are some things you might have a misperception about or a misconception about. So what you need to do is that you need to constantly ask questions. The rules and the regulations that are in that organization, seek clarification and the norms, so that every time that you're doing things, you're not finding yourself on the side of misalignment on expectation. Then the other thing is aligning your behavior. Yes, this is you. This is Anne. You've come in. You have your own values. You have the way you like doing things. But at the end of the day, it is you to fit in. It is not the organization to fit into how you want things done. It's more of you fitting in. So the sooner that you align your behavior, the sooner that you adopt to the practices of that organization, the sooner you have a very easy time. Then the other thing is you need to participate actively. So some of us, probably due to our personalities, probably due to how we found the organization, the way they operate, when we enter into an organization, we tend to hold back. We do not engage enough with people. We are not curious to learn. We are not keen to build rapport. We are not keen to basically have intentional relationships with the different people that we interact with. And when we fail to do this, what happens? We end up start feeling that you're sidelined. You start feeling that you're not fitting in. You start feeling that people are not understanding you. And in the real sense, it's you who never made that deliberate effort to cultivate those relationships that you need to have in order to get your job done and in order for you to have an easy time in that organization.
I'd like to also add just one more thing about just to what Anne has said. Someone has asked a question about, sometimes you can be seen to be asking too many questions. Another way to look at adapting to a new workplace culture is to observe and listen. In moments where, because most organization, I know some don't have like an elaborate onboarding, plan where you've been set up to have meetings with different departments and different teams and different heads of department. Some may have that, some may not. But in the event that you interact with different people from different departments, observe and listen. And then in those spaces, you can ask, like you can be very intentional about the kind of questions you ask. And sometimes you'll find that, as you're going about your day to day, in the new workplace, you'll meet someone who you can actually have good rapport with. And someone like that, you could ask a question like, what is it that you wish someone had told you on day one? You see, that helps you to learn what some of the mistakes you can avoid. And that's just one tip in terms of like, how do I adapt in a new workplace? Respect the values that have been set, because sometimes, you get into a new workplace, you can see things are going wrong. You want to make changes really quickly. You want to move, take time, observe and listen. And then be curious, ask questions, understand where is this coming from. Because that gives you context so that then at what point will I plug myself in to whatever kind of solution. And even just finding allies. Sometimes there are spaces where you find mentors, you'll find buddies, you'll be allocated a buddy, you'll be allocated actually they're called buddies or mentors. And use that mentor or that buddy to understand the space that you're working in. And in the event that you identify certain things that are not working, ask the buddy, hey, okay, I've observed this. What do you think? How did you handle it? And even just ask the buddy questions that you would not ordinarily ask possibly your supervisor or a colleague that you're working with. And those introductory conversations, which you can even ask for, where if, say, you're in marketing, you can ask, can I meet with the sales team? Can I meet with the finance team? Like, depending on how your role is set up, who are the cross-functional team members that you're going to work with, and just have chats with them. Even when you go for lunch, sometimes you'll be told, come, I show you a nice place to go for lunch. In those times, you get to know people. Because culture is people, really. You're relating with people who are working in a certain environment. So then you can be able to know the team dynamics from an almost informal perspective, but even for the formal perspective is observing and listening. How do people communicate here? Do people do emails? Do they do phone calls? Do they do WhatsApp? Is that a thing? How is performance rewarded? And you can even find out from HR if the organization has a HR function. So those are some strategies you can use to understand and to adapt to a new workplace culture, and even just figure out how to fit in within the team dynamics.
Awesome. That has been a deep dive into it, because there are some questions I would have asked, but they've already been answered, right? Because you've addressed around workplace cultures, how to adapt to them. You've also talked a bit about team dynamics, right? You've talked about managing expectations and something about feedback, but I would love for Rose to just take us a step further and tell us a thing about seeking feedback. How do you navigate around this? Because when you're still new somewhere, you need to know how you're doing. How are things from your side? Are you doing the right things? If you can just dive deeper into when you're still on probation period, how can you seek feedback and also try to address something around how do we like professionally communicate around that period? Something about meetings, about chats. How do you stay intentional and make that work as well? Over to you,
Okay,
Rose.
thank you, Joel. That's a very, very good question. What I would say is the moment you get into a new workplace, I think the first thing to do with your supervisor, because you'll be allocated a supervisor, is to find out what are their expectations. Because how you will know is if you sit down with them and they tell you, okay, for this role, I would like you to do this, this, and this within this 90-day period. And it's important that that is clear right from like from the word go. In some cases, you'll probably have that sit down on day one of you joining. And in some cases, you'll have maybe on day three after you've been set up with a laptop or a computer and you've kind of, been given like a 1 or 2 day grace period. But there's some places you hit the ground running. So when you do get time with your supervisor, ask them, what are your expectations of me in this period? And take notes. And then when you're by yourself, you ask yourself, how would I achieve this? And even go back to the supervisor. And because they know the organization, they know, the ins and outs of everything, find out, do you think these strategies could help me achieve this? That's the first thing about thinking around feedback and expectations, because you want to obtain feedback based on what has been communicated to you as your deliverable or as the key tasks and responsibilities of your role. So without that, the feedback will be shocking to you because if you really don't know what you are supposed to do and they come and give you feedback, you'll be like, where is that even coming from? So it's important, number one, to sit with your supervisor and just find out what are your key expectations of me within this period. Number two, which then means you've clarified your role, you've clarified your KPIs, even ask questions like, who are the best people to work with for me to achieve A, B, C, D? And then in some cases, and I know this doesn't happen for everyone, in some cases, you can have, there are supervisors who have one-on-ones, which could happen weekly or every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks. It just depends. So in those one-on-one sessions where you're giving updates to your supervisor, ask for feedback. Just ask, how am I doing or what do I need to improve on? Be the one to seek out for that feedback before it's given to you when you least expect it. So I would say that's a good way of seeking feedback in those one-on-ones with your supervisor or in the team meetings that you have. If you get time alone with, like a one-on-one, even if it's 5 minutes, just find out, how am I really doing based on the priorities. And remember, because you've been given your KPIs already, you're also tracking how you're doing by yourself. You're also trying to see how am I achieving what I need to achieve. But in that journey of achieving the KPIs, then you receive feedback whether you're a good communicator, whether you're doing well or not, areas you need to improve on. If your emails are not good, there's feedback that will come immediately. If you're a salesperson and you're doing calls, there's always that feedback that will come up immediately, even from clients. So those are some of the ways you can receive feedback or even seek out feedback so that then you know how you're doing and you can keep improving because no one is perfect. Even when you join an organization, even if you're really experienced, you're not perfect. So along the way, you will receive feedback. And what was the other question, Joel, that you asked? I
Awesome,
think,
awesome. So you've answered the question, right? And from that question, some questions have came around that. I think we should just address that because I'm looking at how you're moving. You're moving really nicely. Looking at the comment section, someone saying they're thinking you meant buddy, like Gen Z's.
yeah, I saw that. No, I meant
Interesting.
like Buddie, like a
Yeah.
Okay.
buddy, like a friend.
Now they get it. They get it. That's awesome. So, I see an interesting question from Marianne Bugwa saying, what if your supervisor is just as new as you? Mine joined like a week before me. How do you get around that? And then another question that you might also, this one I think Anne will take it. This one they're saying they're an anonymous attendee. They're saying, what if after a sit down with the supervisor, he lets you make decisions and only consult when you're stuck? Those are two questions from that around feedback. Yeah. So I think Rosie will take that one for a new supervisor like you. In that case, if you're new and your supervisor is new.
That's
Take
a
it
tricky
away.
one. That's a tricky one, to be honest, because both of you are trying to learn. So I'd still say, because your supervisor has more experience generally in the work that they're doing, they have a bit of leverage from experience, not necessarily the work environment. So you can leverage that, because as a supervisor, they also have KPIs. They also have objectives and goals that they need to achieve. So it's to find out from them, you know, how are we going to make this work? Where do you want me to step in as someone who you're supervising, so that then your win will be their win as well. So that's one way to deal with it. The other way is make friends with people in the office also and just get to learn. That's why I said things like going for lunch together. If you're stepping out for lunch, when you're in the kitchen warming food, if you have a kitchen in the office, or when you bump into someone as you're walking into the office, those are moments to get to learn more about the organization over and above your supervisor. The important role that your supervisor plays is that, because they're the ones who will review you, whether they are new or not, you have to be very clear about what they expect of you. From that point of view, you rely on them. But in terms of like learning the culture, also you also have to interact with other people to learn the culture. That's what I would say about that question.
All right. So,
Awesome.
Joel,
Thank you
allow
so
me
much.
to add onto
No
Rose's,
problem. Go ahead.
what Rose has said about what if your supervisor is new. So remember, the difference between yourself and your supervisor is that this supervisor has access to spaces that you will not necessarily have, including those management meetings, including the brief from the top. They are way higher than you are. So they have a better perspective of you in terms of the expectation, in terms of even what they are looking for in you, in what to deliver. So with that, you need to constantly keep them near you so that you can understand from their perspective, how do they understand the organization? How do they understand the experiences? How is their settling in so far? Yeah. So back to the question, and before I also answer the question that you've given me, so in matters of seeking feedback, so a point of caution, we must know that we don't seek this feedback too much so that we are not misperceived as not being confident, so that we are not misperceived as not knowing what we want. So we must know where to draw that thin line and know what type of feedback that we are asking for, from whom are we asking for. Remember, you need to show that you're also sure of why you're in that organization. You got the job, for heaven's sake. That means you're the best in that job. So let's not downplay our capabilities and abilities and also keep on second guessing ourselves. Yeah. So to the question that you asked me on what if your supervisor lets you to make the decision and only consult when you're stuck? I can legitimately say that this is one of the best and sure ways of learning. Why? They've shown that they have confidence in your capabilities and your abilities, and it's now up to you to showcase yourself. Because research has it that one of the most disadvantage that employees feel, especially the current generation of employees, they do not want to be micromanaged. They want to be let free. You do your things the way you want to do. Then in the long run, as long as this is what the outcome is supposed to be, it is okay with me. So when you find such a supervisor, what you need to do is you need to clarify on the outcomes so that you can know how to navigate through when it comes to the deliverables. And most importantly, when you are stuck, please do not hesitate to go back to them. Going back to them saying that, hey, I don't think I got this right. I don't think I'm able to do this, or something like, this is what I've managed to do. What are your thoughts about it? Does not show that you're less of a performer, does not show that you don't know what you do. It shows that you actually value their feedback, you actually value their opinion, and you actually value their expertise for you to have that confidence to go back to them and tell them, this is where I am stuck. So where majority of us fail again during probation is we say we are stuck when it's too late. Yet you had an opportunity to consult, you had an opportunity to clarify, you had an opportunity to seek help whenever you could. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much. I believe most of these questions have been answered in a very broader way. And thank you so much, because you're giving us a better perspective of how we should approach this. And I believe on this session, if you're there and you're listening, you're taking notes, because some of the questions I'm looking at have somehow been responded to, and if not directly or indirectly, you have gotten your answers. So what I want to ask, just before we go on to the next segment, for you to tell me on the chat, Grace Njagi, I see your question there. Judith will be coming back to that. Bramwell, thank you for your sentiments. We have Mary, very interesting question saying, in case you make a mistake, how should you go about it? I believe we are going to just take a brief second and respond to that. But just before that, drop it on the chat. What's your most challenging part of your probation so far? Because there are people who have told us they're in probation. So tell us, what are some of your challenging moments? Is it understanding expectations? Is it about fitting into the team culture? Is it about managing maybe your time and priorities? Is it about how to speak up on or how to ask for help? Just tell us, and then someone on the session will be able to respond. I believe I've seen some interaction, some people already answering each other's question, which is a good point. Let's keep interactive on the chat as we advance this session. Remember, if you are with us, any questions, we used to say, do you have a burning question? Any burning questions, just drop them on Q&A, right? So let's get it. On the next segment, we're going to talk about how to master these things, right? You're somewhere in your probation, maybe the second month, and you started thinking about productivity and performance reviews. On Q&A, I already see some questions pending. They are around this area on productivity, and also they are around your performance reviews. So let's just get into it. We'll start with Rose. Rose, can you tell us something around time management and how basically do you stay organized in your probation period? Over to you, Rose.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, time management is an interesting topic because a lot of the things we are required to do in the job rely a lot on how we manage our time. The first thing I would say is use simple tools to organize yourself. The organization will definitely provide you with if it's Outlook or Google Workspace, which comes with a calendar and somewhere to take notes and somewhere to note down tasks. Those are simple tools that you can use. But what I've found helpful for me, which you can adopt, is I actually calendar block times for things that I need to do. So over and above meetings that I have, maybe I have 2 meetings or 3 meetings in a day. If I need to accomplish a specific task, I'll block my calendar for that particular task. It's not to say that I can't talk to people if there's any consultation happening, but it allows me to give time to that thing that I need to do every day or every week, depending on what the task is. So that's one way that I found helpful with time management. It's using, calendar blocking, like blocking your calendar to do specific tasks. There are those who like to who like reminders. So if reminders work for you, set up those reminders. There are those who use alarms on their phone. If that is helpful, use that. But one thing I would say is at a basic level, when it comes to time management, keep time. Like if you're supposed to arrive to start the work day, whether you're working from home or you're, remote worker or you're on premise worker, like you go to the office, if reporting time is 8, just be there at 8, because that is what you signed when you said your contract, you signed, and it said, reporting time is 8 to 5. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions around that, but keep time. If you say, the thing about even building trust and credibility, and we'll discuss that later, is even in simple things like keeping time. If you say you go somewhere and you do something by a certain time, make sure you do it by that time, because then it communicates that you're dependable, that you're reliable, and that you're a good time manager. So whatever will help you to do that thing on time, then use it. So you could use calendars, you could use to-do lists, whether it's a notebook. I walk around with my notebook a lot because I write down everything I need to do. I also calendar block. If it's using your alarm feature on your phone, whatever the case may be, there are several free tools that you can use to manage your time well. And I would say if you feel or if you see that a task you're doing is close to the deadline and you're stuck, which speaks to Anne's point previously, raise that alarm early. Because if the deadline is on Monday and by Monday morning you're struggling, I'm sure by Friday evening or by Thursday, you knew that it was going to be a struggle. So communicate some of those things early enough so that the resolution can be done for you to meet your end of day or your specific time um, uh, deliverables, just depending on what it is. So I would say it's also important to be self-aware and aware of what you're doing to the extent to which you can create some buffer time between when you encounter a challenge and when you're supposed to deliver on something. So I'd say that's also something that is critical when it comes to time management. But in terms of basics, keep time. Just keep time
Mm.
on deadlines, on meetings, reporting times. Just keep time.
Thank you so much, Rose. Anne, I see you have something around this area. Feel free to take it away.
So the other thing on time management, you must be aware of yourself. You must be aware of your strengths and where you're struggling. Personally, when it's between 3 p.m. to 5, this is where I usually say my brain wants to slow down. So anything that is critical, anything that needs me to think, I never schedule it at that particular time. So you need to know your strength and the capabilities on even your productivity. What are your peak productivity times? And for these, you actually need to be very honest with yourself. If you struggle with working where there's a lot of noise, if you know that you need to concentrate on something very critical, please find a very secluded place, even a secluded time for you to work on that particular task. If you find that you're struggling to work with a particular, what do we call this, during a particular time, just be very honest with yourself and navigate through around it. So there are various strategies for you to navigate your weaknesses when it comes to time, and also prioritize, as simple as knowing this is important, this is not important, this is due today. I think this is the most underrated activity when it comes to time management. Just having a view of everything that you need to do, and for you to understand that I need to do this now, I need to do this later, this is not for me to do, let me delegate, this will just waste my time, it's not necessary for me, so that you can have the most productive time as you want. So back to you, Joel.
Awesome. And just before you go, something has just popped in my mind. And I might be asking this on behalf of someone on the session. Uh, this comes up a lot. What if I'm not a morning person? What will be your one to go advice to such people?
So what if you're not a morning person?
Yeah.
The truth of the matter is, not everybody will want to know whether you're a morning, evening, noon, lunchtime, nighttime. They just want their work done. There are some organizations whereby this must be done at this particular time. This must be done at this particular time. If you find yourself in such an environment, you just need to figure your way out on how to go about those tasks. And the one sure is by, there's what we call the Pomodoro technique, whereby after every task you've accomplished something very difficult, you reward yourself. You can say, yes, I struggled to work on this in the morning, but I need to come and send this report every single morning. When you do that task that morning, reward yourself even with a 5 minutes break, a coffee, a chocolate, if you can afford it. With that, you're going to like trigger your system to know that for me to execute these difficult tasks at this time whereby I'm struggling, I can as well give myself what a reward. And then we can find ourselves, we are in organizations whereby they're so flexible. They do not care whether you do your thing at 3 a.m., you do it at 2 p.m. As long as by this particular deadline, this is sorted, it is okay. So if you find yourself in such scenarios, you need to count yourself lucky, but do not abuse that capability and that power so that you're the one everybody knows this person just sends my reports at 3 a.m. in the morning. Who is awake to read those reports? And also, there's a way you can even schedule. If you're a night person, just as a way of even respecting other people's time, there's a way you can just schedule your emails and your notifications to go at a particular time. But key is you must learn your environment. There are environments which will accommodate you. I am not a morning person, and you'll have to navigate through it. But there are environments which are very flexible, very accommodative. Take advantage and work well.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. Anne is asking, what's the name of that technique again? The one that you reward
Pomodoro.
yourself.
Let me
She's been
type.
answered.
Let me
I
type
see
in the
Grace
chat.
has already responded.
Oh, thank you.
Grace,
Not
thank you,
resp-
Grace.
It's not that one, Grace.
Okay, give us the right name. Me, I was sure it's that.
So,
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. I believe we are learning a thing or two. So much. We're learning so much. Up to this segment so far, we've picked quite a lot of things from this session so far. And I saw Rose with a notebook just to get it going. Um, with that notebook, Rose, there's something about documenting your wins, your growth, and the feedback you're receiving. What do you have to say around that? How do you work out? How do you document your wins generally? How do you document your growth? How do you map out your growth structure or how that curve is going? And maybe how well do you put down feedback to be able to easily refer to it and be able to action it if it needs some actioning? I'll shoot it over to Rose. You had a book, so tell us, how do you go about this?
Yeah, maybe you should have asked what I write in the book.
Interesting.
Um, but to answer your question, how I track my progress, I have a journal that I write. I write like what I learned in that day. And I regularly go back, and this is something that I learned in my previous role. I regularly go back to the goals and objectives of my role. And that's something that, when you say something you wished you had learned way back, that's one of the things that's one of the skills I wished I would have learned earlier. Because when you go back to the objectives and goals of your role, it kind of grounds you and brings you back to center. So I regularly check. I know what my KPIs, here we call them OKRs. I know what my objectives and key results are, and so I look at them And I'm like, how did I do on this particular one today? How did I do on this other one? You know, what did I do today to advance any of them? And I call myself out and I'll write, I'll be like, okay, here I probably, didn't do so well. Then I tell myself tomorrow I need to do A, B, C, D to execute so that I can get closer to the objectives that I have. So I would say I really journal. And then one of the other things I write in, so I don't write that in this notebook, but I do have a journal. But in this book, I actually write the things that I need to do for the day. And sometimes when I'm in a meeting, if I make certain observations, I will write them down, especially when those observations I know affect or are good to learn to help me in my role. So I do that regularly. And then, just tracking what have I done. Why I like to do that in a notebook is sometimes I go back and see, like I'll go back to the first page and just move one page after another, and I'll be like, oh my God, I actually made progress here, or there's something that I missed out here. So I would say note taking, whether it's like on a laptop, maybe you use one of those note taking apps like Evernote or Microsoft Notes or Google Keep. It's just to take notes so that when I go back, I can sort of like pick learnings and I can pick areas of areas I feel I'm not doing so well that I need to improve on, which help me to set the pace for like the next day or the next week or the next month. So that's how note taking has really helped me.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. So in a nutshell, you've explained to us basically the easiest thing to be able to just document whatever you need to document is we need to be fond of taking down things. I know there's a way, everyone has a way they journal. There are people who have an actual book. You might be having notes on your phone. Myself, I like tracking a lot of things using my phone because you always have your phone next to you, right? So you can always reference or refer to it on what you need to do next. What have you done this week? What are your plans? Make some notes, have a checklist of what you'll be doing or what you're doing, and then track it. Check whatever it is. And remember that technique. Reward yourself. I can't say that word right now. It keeps escaping my mind. Now, I'll take it to Anne, something around how to build your reputation for reliability. How can someone in their probation period be able to just build their reputation to show how reliable they are?
So it's pretty simple. Deliver what you promised to deliver when you promised to deliver. And also, what you say you can do, please let it be truthful to yourself. I sit on the other end of the recruitment table, and when we tell people, tell us about your achievements, what can you do? People usually paint this rosy picture. Oh, I can do this within this month. I was able to achieve this. I did a turnaround of 12 million. And most likely than not, you actually get the job because of what you claim you can do. And then when you come, you're given, when the rubber meets the road, you're told, then you start giving excuses and explanations and all that. So the first thing is you must be real to yourself. What can you do and how can you do it? And what you promised to deliver, please do it within the time, and also be consistent in what you say. Be consistent in how you do your work. Be consistent in how you deliver. With that, you're going to build credibility over time, and they're going to view you as someone very reliable. And the opposite is true. We can be able to see through these lies in the interview tables and even when we interact with you. When you're constantly giving excuses, when you're constantly falling behind deadlines, when you're asked a question, you're navigating through it, we begin to question your credibility. And with that, you will have no one to blame. Back to you, Joy.
Thank you so much. That's very insightful, and it has sparked something. I'm in customer experience, and what you actually say is give your customers what they want, how they want it, and when they want it. So it's practically the same thing, but mirrored from now an employer-employee perspective. And I like the conversation so far. I love that we are all learning something. Bramwell Odwori, you've done some research and gotten exactly what you're talking about around your time management technique. Thank you, Bramwell, for that. It means you are really learning. Thank you for that. Someone has already dropped a link on how to basically time management tips for work. Thank you so much, and we are already sharing resources around. That's very nice of you. So just before we proceed on to the next one, I'll ask on the chat. Let's get interactive again. What's that one habit that you've adopted to stay organized at work? Tell us those interesting things that you are doing to stay organized. Are you taking notes? Do you have 50 alarms on your phone for every task that you are doing? Tell us what interesting things or what's that one habit that you're adopting to just stay organized. So we move to the next segment. I'll be reading the chat. You still have the Q&A open. We'll be addressing some of the questions. Um, Someone says they have alarms and to-do lists. An awesome way, Grace Akinyi. And then I see Diana saying, for me, it's God. That's interesting. It sounds very literal. Angela, you're saying, how do you handle resistance from a former manager who has been downgraded to your position? That's interesting. We'll be tackling that. Maybe one of Rose or Anne can take that as we just read the comments. Someone saying they're using sticky notes. That's interesting. I used to love using sticky notes, but then I find sometimes sticky notes are cluttering my space. It depends on how you see it, but it's still a good approach. I love it. Um, Someone saying they're using an avalanche method from big tasks to small tasks. You just reminded me of my geography class. I used to love geography. So the word avalanche sparks a lot of good memories from back then. Geography class, you sit there, learn interesting things about what we used to call it, the phenomena of the art or the arts phenomena. Interesting. So we'll be moving on to the next segment, which might be our second last or third last. We are almost there. We are past halfway there. So I'm loving the pace so far, the interaction. Thanks for everyone who is just interacting on the chat, shooting your questions on Q&A. Let's move on. So we're going to take a break and just take a moment to reflect on so far what we've learned. We've talked about productivity and performance, right? We've also mentioned about how do you win on your first 90 days, understanding the probation process, feedback, understanding team dynamics. We've already delved into something about how to manage our time and tasks, documenting our feedback. We've talked about our reputation. And now we're still on the probation period, something that really comes up, your confidence, your value, and career ownership, because these are three things that will really set you apart. So one thing that stands out is you need to own your voice and communicate confidently. Now, communication has been spoken about before. I've seen questions around what if my manager does this, does that? What if I'm failing in my tasks or I'm stuck? How do you go about it and stuff like that? So I'll hand it over to Rose, who is going to talk about communication and how do you communicate confidently at the same time, just owning the voice. And she's also going to break it down about value. And then we'll give it back to Anne. But at the same time, if Anne has anything around these topics, you'll also feel free to just chime in. And we'll talk about how to just grow beyond probation and how to build your relationships and visibility. I know we've talked about visibility at some point where Rose was saying you need to make friends around the company, have discussions with people, go to lunch, catch up and understand the organizations better, but we'll dive deeper into that. Let's begin with Rose. I hope I didn't complicate whatever I asked you and you got it clearly. Let's roll.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see if I got it clearly. Around communication. So I'd look at communication in a few ways. Number one, it's the channels we use to communicate. So we have emails, then we have calls, and that's in the context of our workplace. And then there are those organizations that have the collaboration tools like Slack or Google Workspace. I don't know if there's one more, Teams. There are those various channels where you communicate. So the question is, how do you communicate and what do you communicate? And I would say anytime you're on a professional platform, your communication has to be very clear and very concise. Um, Sometimes, we when we are writing emails or even when we're talking on phone, if it's with a client or with a colleague, we can tend to ramble about random things. But I would say for you to maintain that professionalism in the workplace, it's really making sure that your communication is very clear, it's very concise. And what I mean is like, don't ramble, just be, straight to the point and say what you mean, and explain. And I think there are various frameworks that people use to share, to give information. And I'll think of a few and then share them on chat. So I'd look at it from that point of view, the channels that we use to communicate and the things that we communicate. Then there's communicating as part of, being a team and owning your voice. What does that look like? When you're in the context of your one-on-one, do you speak up? Do you talk about, do you relay the information or relay any issue or updates that you have or feedback that you have to your teammates, to your supervisor in a very clear way? And sometimes, I don't know if you guys have faced it, but I remember when I was in high school, when a teacher asks a question, I would really think, hey, if I know I have the answer, but I'm like, is it correct? If it's wrong, what will my friends think? What will the teacher think? And in our time, unarushiwa chalk. Sorry to change the language there, but the teacher will throw chalk at you if it was the wrong answer. So there's that context of sometimes you can be afraid to speak up or to share something in the context of even a meeting in the workplace. So I would say a good way to learn how to navigate that space is to begin speaking up in smaller settings. Where if it's a one-on-one, if it's a team meeting, if it's a project check-in, just speak up. And when you're speaking up, you have to respond to what is being discussed, not just a very random thought. It's either you're adding to what someone has said or you're giving feedback about something that's happening, that is important in making a decision as a group, or it's important in making a decision between you and your supervisor. Another way of owning your voice that I've found very helpful for me is if you know there's a meeting coming up, prepare. If it's a meeting with your supervisor, if it's a meeting with a client, if it's a meeting with a team member, whoever, a stakeholder, a key stakeholder, whoever it is, take time and think about what should the outcome of this engagement be? What do I really want to achieve from this engagement? Maybe you want to sell an idea or you want to share, some feedback about certain things so that you can improve. Maybe whatever it is that you want to share, it's important to prepare and even write down points in your notebook and say, these are some of the things that are coming up even as I think about this meeting. So then when you're in the meeting, you're not feeling like everyone is speaking Greek. You've thought about it, you kind of know what people are going to talk about or what the topic of the meeting is all about. So that then when it comes to, when someone invites for feedback or for response from the group, then you are very clear about the kind of questions you wanted to ask because you already thought about it. So that's the second way to navigate that owning your voice and communicating confidently, because preparing is so critical. And in some roles, I remember this past weekend I attended an event where this lady, she's a lawyer, and she was saying that she had this case that she was dealing with that was very tough, and she was the only one from her side, and the other side had even brought experts from like South Africa who were dealing with a particular case. And she said she spent the night preparing, reading, understanding, what it is that they were going to talk about. So in some cases, for you to communicate confidently, it means that you have to know your subject matter, and almost like have questions that would be in your mind that you bring on the table that will show actually this person thought about, this particular topic. So confidence grows from preparation. So you have to prepare for conversations in the workplace. That's how you kind of own your voice, because when you speak up, you're speaking from a point of knowledge, but also in the event that you don't know, you can always ask and be wise in that asking. That's what I would say about owning your voice and
Wow,
communicating.
that's amazing. You don't have to say anything at all. And do you have anything around this? If you could kindly just let us know. Any addition to this?
Yes, your voice needs to be authentic. It needs to be you. You don't need to copy how other people talk. You don't need to copy other people's ideas. That means if you're authentic, you're going to be very comfortable with yourself. So what will that mean? It will mean that you will keep on developing your own skills because you have accepted who you are, you have accepted what you can deliver. And from that point of view, even the developments and the professional exposures that you're giving yourself will actually be addressing you, and you're going to get better every single time. That's all I can add.
Awesome. I think let's just go on with you, because there's this thing about knowing your value as a new hire. And I've already seen on the chat someone saying, how about if I realize I'm being underpaid, or what happens when I feel like I'm being underpaid? How do you address that around just knowing your value as a new hire, maybe your contributions, the impact to the team or to the company? What will you have to say around that?
So, Joel, I must admit that this is a very sensitive area to navigate. So many people find themselves there, but they don't know how to go about it. So the first thing, when you join an organization, when you find you've been underpaid, the first thing to do is not to retaliate. Do not be too loud about it. Do not come all guns blazing. Because remember, by that time you were given whatever offer you were given, you actually agreed to it. You signed a document and said that you understand these are the benefits, this is the salary that is being offered, and you signed and say you consent to it, whether willingly or unwillingly. That means you have accepted, and there's nothing you can do, at least legally, on your employer. So how do you navigate around that? When you realize that happens, the first thing is you need to take stock of why you're feeling you're being underpaid. As you've rightfully said, is it the skills that you're bringing to the table? Is it you've suddenly found out what the other people have been paid and are delivering the same amount? And once you get the reasons, you need to actually present them. But presenting them, how you present them is actually how matters. So the best way to present such forums is when you're having, let's say, a performance review, when you're having a catch-up session with your employer. And once you're able to demonstrate the value that you're bringing, that conversation will actually get more reception, as opposed to when you're saying, I have realized other people are being paid more than me. First and foremost, who told you they are being paid than you? You know, that is supposed to be very confidential information. However, we have some organizations who have a very open salary structure, but there are others, salary information, benefit information is supposed to be very private. So whenever you come to my office and you say, I need a salary raise because you're paying Joel this amount of money, already the reasons for that salary raise do not come out as credible as they should. You could be right, those could be the facts, but as an employer, I am looking at the value that you're bringing to the table, and I want to compensate you for the value. So the sure way is during the review, just say, this is what I have been able to achieve. This is what I have been able, this is how much I've been able to save the company. This is the initiative that I've brought forth. And for this, I feel that I need a raise. And also you must be very specific on the amount that you're asking for. This is also comes when you come into salary negotiations, so that this person can know that you actually understand your value, you actually know how much you're worth. And caution is, these requests more often than not are never granted. Actually, the employer will give you a reason, probably budgetary constraints, probably you need to, this is the starting salary and all that. So when you're going to that negotiation table, go with an open mind that your request may be accepted or not. And if it is not accepted, now that's when now you're going to ask yourself, now what do I do moving here, from here? Do I need to settle and say, okay, this is fine, and find other ways of building the rapport, the reputation, or do I need to now start having an exit strategy and an exit plan? So if you must take something away from my inputs answering this particular question, is when you're presenting such concerns, please present them with the value that you're bringing on the table, not the ones that you're planning to bring, the value that you're bringing on the table that can be verified, that are tangible. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much. I was really avoiding to go around that path of now salary negotiation, because that will have sparked a whole different conversation. But I love the direction you've given. It's more about what are you bringing to the company, the value, your skill set, your impact. That's what we really need to pay attention to. And that will now take us now to the next conversation of, in case you want to negotiate about maybe your salary. So I'm happy that we've really navigated this well, and we've been very objective about it. So if you can mention something around how to prepare for your career growth now beyond the probation period. Now we've gone through all the other parts. How do we now take it to the next level? How do I prepare for the next one now beyond the probation period? If I'm getting confirmed, how do you get ready for that?
All right. So answering that, the first thing you need to do is you need to understand your priorities. And these need to be aligned to those of the organization. When we were starting off, Rose spoke quite lengthy about understanding the expectations, the KPIs and all that. So it does not stop at the point of hire. It does not stop at the point of the start of probation. In fact, every single day you need to ask yourself, what are the priorities for this organization and how do I contribute to them? So once you understand your priorities, you need to just accept to be coachable in the same. Please do not run your own race. Accept to be guided. Accept feedback, and feedback both positive and, most importantly, developmental feedback. Accept having just your own check-in on how you're doing, the capabilities that you're doing. And then once you're coachable and all that, you also need now to cultivate those relationships. Relationships do not end at the start of that particular role. Relationships actually evolve over time. You will find that the person you are actually actively collaborating with at the point of entry of your organization, maybe they have changed, or maybe they are going through their own cycle that you need to keep on adapting. Then you also need to keep on reading the room. You need to understand the stakeholders that you have and understand the value that you bring to them, and always deliver results. As we said, you need to be authentic, you need to be reliable. Always deliver results and always respect boundaries. Don't become too over familiar with a colleague. Just because, yes, now I am confirmed, now we've been buddies for the last 4 months, or you've had a relationship with your manager for the last 4 months, now you're moving on. Now you just become too comfortable, you overstep boundaries, you let your guard down, you let them too much into your inner space, that they now start seeing you in another light other than the professional that they confirmed at the beginning of the probation period. So always remember that as much as the probation period ended at that particular time, The only difference is that the notice period changes. Otherwise, the expectations remain the same in terms of output. The expectations in terms of how you're carrying yourself remains the same. So you need to constantly be on the lookout so that you're not under the wrong spotlight for people to question your capability, your professionalism, and actually what you're bringing to the table. Back to you, Joel.
Awesome. Thank you for that. You've really put it well because you've spoken a lot around professionalism and how to just shape yourself after the period or during the period. It's very key for us to stay professional. And Rose, just to add on to that, how will you talk about it when it comes to building internal relationships and your visibility in the organization or in the particular setup, you as someone who is in probation or you are still on the probation period?
Yeah. I think yes, it can be tricky, when you think about you're in this new space, and you're trying to learn the people, you're trying to learn the culture, you're trying to learn how to do the work, or you already know how to do the work, but it's learning how to do the work in that context. So I'd say it's as I said earlier, I think I talked about finding allies, finding people who you can always talk to. Like, say, if your role interfaces with, if you're maybe in the tech space, and your role interfaces with a developer, interfaces with a project officer, project manager. It's how do you build such relationships? It's literally talking to people, saying hi. You get into the office, say hi to people. Good morning, Sasa Niaje, how are you? And just be interested in people because people can tell when you're faking it. I think Anne has talked about being authentic. People can tell. So just check in on people like, hey, how are you? If you're seated next to someone, at least know their name. And it happens over time. It's not something that will happen in a day or in 2 days. It's today you say hi to me, tomorrow you say hi to me. The next day it will be, oh, how are you? The next day it will be, I've seen maybe you look excited. It's asking, you know, what you seem to be very excited. What's happening? What's the exciting thing? So you could have those simple conversation starters. And someone has asked about those people who are not morning people. Um, I mean, it's okay. You can come in and sit, and then when you're ready, as you go get your water, as you go to get your tea, say hi to the people who are around you. You don't have to say it like the first thing when you get into the office at 7 or at 8, but at 11 or even at lunchtime, get to know what's happening, because that's how you build relationships inside the organization. Um, and then those relationships, you get to learn about what people are doing and even get to learn how to there's always process flows within the organizations and structure, but it is those relationships that sometimes will move things along faster in some cases. So, get to know who to go to when you need a certain thing, when you need what? Like, for example, if your organization offers like notebooks and pens and all that, know who's the person to go to and ask for that. If you know that, like in my case, I interact a lot with the sales team. I need to know who in the sales team I'll go and ask for certain things. So it's learning about people and what they do and being interested that helps you to navigate relationships internally while still maintaining those professional boundaries. Because as Anne says, when you're in probation and you're feeling like, hey, we are good. Sometimes you almost like cross the boundary, don't. But just keep it professional, everything on email. If there are decisions that are being made, have it in writing, all those like professional things. But it's in those little conversations on the corridor that you actually build relationships. And I think it's you don't have to even be you don't have to like everyone, but at least be cordial. Because I think there's a question that was asked, sometimes the people who are uptight in the organization, they're rigid. That's okay, but at least be cordial. Be able to say, high and ask for what you need because you've built some bit of rapport. You don't necessarily have to be best of friends. That's what I would say.
Wow, wow. Thank you for that. Indeed, it's a very interesting session because things are coming up, and I'm really loving the interaction because I see some questions on the chat and they're being answered in real time. Someone was asking something interesting around is taking holidays during probation allowed? And how long should probation take before learning to the contract, signing just in case? And then someone has already responded. I see Grace saying, depends with the organization. So you need to take time and learn the culture. So when it comes to how long it takes, it can be 3 months, which is 90 days. Some can extend to all the way up to 6 months. Some can do it around 4 months. It depends on the organization. So it might vary from one organization to another. The thing about holidays, well, it's interesting. Work-life balance. I know that conversation will come up. But most companies wouldn't allow you to really take a break during your probation period. Maybe in your first 3 months, at least try and just do it on your free time, maybe on weekends alone. But during the working days, some of the companies will want you full time. But again, like she said, take time to learn the organization and know what they allow and what they don't. So one thing I'll ask, what's your biggest career confidence blocker? Because I see a lot of people are talking about some of their blockers. I saw an imposter syndrome somewhere. So tell us on the chat. Do you have that imposter syndrome? Are you shy speaking up in meetings? Do you struggle with maybe asking for support or clarity? Uh, do you struggle with visibility with your managers? It's like you're not being seen, or you're those people who are reserved and you just exist like a fly on the wall, right? Because I believe with the number of people we have on this call or on this session, someone hasn't typed anything at all. So you're just a fly on the wall, visibility again. So tell us, what is that one thing that you struggle with? And then I see Mary just clarifying the saying, what does it mean when your employer extend your probation period? That will be answered. So on the next session, I'm glad that we've stuck through the session until this time. So I want us to go to the last part. We're going to just address some of your questions before we tell you what next. But before that, an interesting thing that I need to mention. We have Rose Mende on the session. At the same time, we have Anne Bahati on the session, who has been curious enough to check out their LinkedIn profile. Wow, I think I've spoken so much. What's escaping me? LinkedIn profile, right? Has anyone checked out LinkedIn profile for Rose Mwende or for Anne Bahati? If you've done it, just put your hand up or give me a reaction. Have you checked their LinkedIn profiles and see how colorful they are? Or the amount of glam and professionalism on their platforms? I'll highly recommend you do that because these are the next mentors that you might be looking out for, or the people you want to recommend you, or the people you should be interacting with on LinkedIn. You can confidently say, I know someone. These are your people. So feel free to head over to LinkedIn. Caroline, thank you so much. Caroline Nafula says you've checked their profiles. Awesome. I see Derek Sabatia saying, I've checked their profiles. Rose is in my field and I just love it. That's Marianne Bugwa. Thank you so much, Marianne. You're in the recruitment space. That's awesome. You are the matchmakers, professional matchmakers. I was forgetting that line. So let's take some questions just before we wrap up. It's been a fun session. So Joab says you're currently following Rose. And thank you so much, Anne, because I've seen you on the Q&A responding to questions. So we're looking good. But I'd love for us to tackle this. So you're in your probation period. You're about to wrap up. So this is an interesting question from an anonymous attendee. I really wish you had your name somewhere, right? But let's just go on with it. So any of Rose or Anne can take the question. So what should I look out for on the last assessment leading up to my confirmation into the company or into a company? How do I prepare for the last assessment? And also, how can I leverage my skills and contributions to a company's success to negotiate for benefits and increased pay? That's interesting. Take it away to our specialists.
Rosie, do you want to go first?
I think you should because of that HR angle.
All right, so when you're preparing for your last assessment, what do you do to prepare? You must have your data on your fingertips. The data in terms of your achievements, in terms of where you fell short, it needs to be on your fingertips, and it needs to be verifiable. And you also need to be very truthful when it comes to assessing and all that. So we need to avoid giving feedback. Just know when you're going for that assessment, it's you giving your point of view, and the line manager is also giving their point of view, so that now you can agree in terms of performance expectations. Where are you? So for this, you need to be very clear on where you are, and it needs to be truthful, it needs to be verifiable, it needs to be very realistic. At the same time, some of us usually just look at the achievements in terms of the work output and the quality, and also forget that even the competencies, the soft skills, are up for assessment at that particular time. You might be so good in your work, but maybe the organization is keen on people who have competencies like adaptability, like emotional intelligence, like alignment to their values, like what do you call these? Just the interpersonal relationships they have with people, because the organization has since evolved. We don't look at you based on what you can deliver, based on what you have achieved. We also look at your personality and how it adapts to the working environment. So for you, you need to have a view of all these in you, your achievement, how you're doing in terms of your competencies. And if you're in an organization where they're so advanced that they have these performance management tools, you need to start familiarizing yourselves early enough at the start of the probation. Not when you're going for your review, that's when you're asking, which template do I feel? How do I feel? With that, when you start familiarizing yourself with it early enough, it's going to be easy even for you to align your achievements into that template, even for you to align your what we call the probation plan into that template, and it's going to be very easy for you. Also, when you're preparing for your review, make sure you have a pre-review session with your line manager. Ask them, how is it going to be? What do you want me to highlight? What kind of reports do you want me to bring with me? What kind of feedback do you want for me to get it ready? Remember when Rose told us that always go to every meeting prepared. And this is your most important meeting. And also when you're going there, please let your gun down. Don't go with self-defensive mode, because you're going to be given feedback on what you've done well and feedback on what you've not done well. Especially on this developmental feedback, you need to just be humble enough to listen and to assess, is this true? What I'm being told. And if it is true, what can I do to work on myself moving forward? And if it is false, do you come out guns blazing and seeming aggressive? No. What you need to do is just pause, come back, and probably give that feedback at another time. So in a nutshell, you need to be ready in terms of the data and the information you have. You need to be ready in terms of the templates that you're going to use. You also need to be ready in terms of the feedback that you are bound to receive in the same. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much. That has been a very wide approach to that. I believe everyone on the session has taken out something. That question has been well responded to. I saw a question that kept coming up. I'll shoot this to Rose, but still Anne can chime in anytime. A question that has really sparked is around leadership or your seniors or someone you're answering to. I've seen a question around supervisor, maybe So this is a question from Geoffrey, but there was a similar question from someone else. Geoffrey says, how about if the senior that you should consult or you should consult sees you as a threat to them? And then I saw another one around what if someone that you're consulting sees you as someone who is maybe too qualified, or like you package yourself as someone who feels like the other person will feel like you're a threat. So I'll start by saying emotional intelligence, but Rose, feel free to tell us, how should you handle such situations around the person you are reporting to, your seniors, people around the organization, how they see you? Do they see you as a threat and stuff like that? Give us more insights on this, please.
Thank you for that question, for those who've asked. And I think I'll first start by saying, um, I am so sorry that you're going through that. And I know it can be very, you almost like feel discouraged sometimes because you're wondering, how are you going to do your work? Because a person who's supposed to be leading or coaching or guiding you in the role is the same one who you're feeling is looking at you as a threat. So it's a very tricky space to be in. And so, thank you for that question. And secondly, I must admit that it's not an easy situation to handle. But I would say a good place to start is always go back to the key objectives and goals of the role that you have. Um, Based on that, then it feeds into your daily tasks and activities, which then feeds into, whatever the overall departmental goals and objectives are. So can I say your North Star should be the key goals you have that, of course, relate to the overall achievement of goals of the company. That should be like your North Star, your guiding factor as you do your day-to-day activities. And even in your sessions with your supervisor, I would say, and the supervisor who's looking at you as a threat, is to be very keen and identify what are those things that are making you feel that this person is looking at you as a threat. What does that look like? Because depending on what it is it a skill issue? Is it an I don't like you issue? Is it like what is it that you've identified is the, can I say, key indicator that this person is seeing you as a threat? Because when you identify that, then you can objectively craft a solution around that to know how to deal with your supervisor. Because at the end of the day, for you to succeed or for you to do your role, there are touch points with your supervisor. And then there are those that are there are those tasks or responsibilities that solely rely on you and what you do, but there are those that need to go for approval to your supervisor and all that. So I would say really identify what are those key, can I say, threat indicators, and then look at each threat, like each thing that is causing you to think that or to feel like your supervisor is looking at you as a threat, and see of this thing, do I have control over this thing?
Mm.
If you do something about it. If not, then leave it. Because the thing about working in an environment where you you're second guessing yourself, or you don't know the intentions or the motives of your supervisor, that's a very tricky place to be. So as you're still in the role, it's identifying ways to navigate and to cope in that environment. Um, Obviously, I would say as an plan B, plan C is to see how you can plan an exit strategy. But
Mm.
before you get to that point, it's, have I done everything within my control,
Mm.
within my power to navigate this environment? Because remember, you also have a personal career goal. So even as you're doing this probation, you want to see what skills am I learning? How am I growing? And am I achieving what I needed to achieve in this role? As written, no control over like dressing up and just how your energy projects in an environment which is very tricky. I have experienced this previously, and that's true. Sometimes that's why I said, is it an emotional thing? I just don't like how you dress. I don't like how you talk. I don't like how you look. I just don't like your presence. And then I feel like you're a threat because of your work. So you have to really identify those threat indicators for you to isolate them and deal with those, especially where you have control. Um, that's what I would say. I don't know if that's helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe do you have something to add on that? Just as we wrap it up.
Yes, I've learned a new word today, key threat indicator. We are used to key performance indicators, key everything. Now I have a new one, key threat indicator. Yeah, so I agree with Rose. And also one thing that I might add, sometimes you might be forced to gather courage and to talk to them privately and even ask them, I have realized our relationship is a bit strained and I want to make it better. Where do you think I am going wrong? So that you can clarify the perceptions that you have. Sometimes our views are a misperception or a misconception of what it is. Sometimes these people are just going about their business, and here you are wondering, these people, I am threatening them. These people keep on just being on my case and all that. Sometimes, actually, these people find us. Sometimes what we view as a threat might not necessarily be the same. It could be even our own undoing, that we are actually choosing to interpret it in a different manner. So having a conversation works. However, I acknowledge that some people do not create convenient room for having this conversation. So as Rose has rightfully said, analyze those key threat indicators. Now I'll be using this more often. And if it's something that is within your control, please quickly adapt and work around it. But if it's something that is not within your control, an exit strategy is proper. It's actually okay. It's normal for you to think that you have bagged the job of the year and realize that number one, you didn't do the background check well, or number two, the environment does not favor you. So you don't need to sit and wallow and have pity parties. You actually need to make that exit strategy. However, you need to be very graceful about it. You need to be very silent about it. And you need to be very strategic about it. Back to you, Joel.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Someone is having something that is really disturbing them. Marianne Mbugua, you're saying, what does it mean when your employer extends your probation period? It will be nice if you address this as well.
So extension means that we are not comfortable to firm up the employment relationship with you. It could be because you have not attained the key expectations that's your role. It could be that in terms of cultural alignment, you're not up to par, and they need to give you a longer period of time for you to adjust. It's like, we can call it a performance improvement plan. The opposite, when you're confirmed and performance concerns have been noted, is actually a performance improvement plan. So for this particular case, they're not comfortable to now cement the working relationship. And legally, this is protected. It cannot be extended past 6 months. And if 6 months reaches and they feel that this relationship cannot go on again, so the employer is at liberty to terminate that employment aspect. Remember, I gave a guidance during probation. The difference between during probation and after probation, it could be the notice period, whereby during probation, the notice period, any party that wishes to terminate that contract gives a minimum of 7 days. And past probation period, any party willing to terminate the employment contract gives a minimum 1 month. And also we have some organization whereby during probation, some employee benefits are not unlocked. So that is the difference. So meaning when it is extended, it means that if First, your notice period is still minimum 7 days. You do not get to unlock the benefits pertaining to that role once confirmed. And there are some performance aspects that they've seen that they want you to improve. Back to you, Joel.
Thank you so much. This pretty much answers the question. I'm glad, Marianne, this has been responded to. And to anyone else who had this similar question on the session, I hope you've gotten your answer and it's now vivid and it's a bit clear for you on the way forward on how to work it out. But I believe on this session, we've just gone over everything that you need to know. We've given you insights on how best to end the probation period. We've covered a bit deeper level of conversations around performance reviews and productivity. We mentioned around your confidence, your value, and a bit about career ownership. We also talked about understanding the environment, the culture, team dynamics. We've really delved deeper into what you need to know. What are some of your biggest confidence blockers and how they affect you? We've gotten insights from the real industry leaders on this. And I really have loved to go over and beyond with this, but unfortunately, time might not be on our side to proceed, but I believe we've taken our key takeaways. So just before we close, I'd like for Rose to, and also Anne to just give us one tip for owning your career journey during and after probation. What's that one thing that you need us to know on how to just ace that probation before and after and during, just in a nutshell?
What I would say is throughout that probationary period, I would say you could aim to do a lot of reflection, a lot of engagement, and advocate for yourself. Um, what I mean by that is take moments of reflection. What am I learning? Where do I want to grow? Who's going to help me in this environment? Do I need to talk to a mentor outside of this environment? And just have like honest conversation. And talked about being self-aware. Be self-aware. It's okay if you call yourself out because it's just you and you. So do a lot of reflection, engage with your supervisor, engage with your colleagues, get to know people. Um, I think that engagement is a good way to sort of like help you navigate and settle in a new workspace. And then advocate for yourself.
And
Ask questions, seek for clarity. Understand your goals, personal and even company ones, and see how those two align. And then just enjoy the probationary period because you've been selected. You are hired out of a pool of say 200 people. Then they said it is you. Um, Enjoy the role and just give your best shot. That's what I would say.
thank you so much. I'll give it over to Anne.
You've actually just taken words out of my mouth, Rose. And I just needed to remind the audience, when you get that role, whether you're on probation or not, it's because you proved yourself in some sort of assessment that you can actually do it, and somebody became confident of your capabilities and abilities. Please don't let them down. And also don't be comfortable. Always assess yourself, always aim to be better, to understand what these people need of you, deliver it even above expectation, and always be hungry and be curious to ask yourself, what's next? So just remember that if you do not own your career, nobody will own that career for you. If you do not push yourself to the next level, very few people will actually have that grace to actually point that out and to push you towards that direction. But they only get motivated to do that if you're pushing yourself in the same. So in a nutshell, please ace these probations. It's nothing much. Just understand what the environment is about and navigate through it. Back to you, Joel.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We've had such an insightful session. And I've seen a bit of questions that I'm going to address. So you're asking yourself, you're a job seeker, you're looking for that job. Where do you head over to? We are Brighter Monday, right? So go to www.brightermonday.co.ke. Sign up. If you don't have a profile, sign up. If you have a profile, you can already start looking for those opportunities. But one interesting thing that is on there, we have courses that will help you skill up. There's a course called First 90 Days in Office. It's on our platform. Go to my courses. If you sign up, go to my courses. You can be able to do that courses. So some of the things that have been shared are on that course and even more. You might find more resources over there. What are your key takeaways, right? Your key takeaways. What are your key takeaways? Share them with us on Twitter. Share them with us on Instagram. Just use the hashtag #SYourProbation. Go over to Twitter. I know we are all trips. Or is it now X? Yeah, right. I was getting it wrong. It's X. Go over to X and use the hashtag #SYourProbation. Tell us what your key takeaways are for this session. Remember, we have a bit more courses on Brighter Monday Learning Hub apart from the 90 days in office. Also, remember to subscribe to our newsletters for our upcoming career sessions. We'll be having more of this. I know there are things that were coming up like salary negotiation. We'll be talking about that. A bit about how do I set myself apart when I'm trying to go head over for an interview. Feel free to just check out our platform. I'm seeing a bit of comments. Caroline, you're saying you've actually gotten a job in 2021 via this platform. I believe you're still on that job or you might have transitioned. You highly recommend us. Thank you so much. Hogla Mwamburi, you're saying you've enjoyed the session. Asante sana. It's been our pleasure to have you and to bring you awesome speaker. I want to thank our speakers. And Bahati, thank you so much for your massive contribution to this session. Without you, I believe myself, I wouldn't have been able to hold down this session alone. Rose Mende, thank you so much for your insights. You've given us quite a lot. We don't leave the session the same way we came in, just like people in the good places say, you'll not leave the same way you came. And I believe everyone on this session has taken out something out of this. So you don't have to be perfect in your 90 days. You just need to be intentional. Probation, I know it isn't easy. So it's like a test. So it's a test. And you need to look at it as a runway. So just own your pace, own your process, show up with the purpose, and everything else will be awesome from there on. So thank you to everyone who was here. Remember to follow us even on LinkedIn, Brighter Monday Kenya. Head over to our platform and sign up, take some of our courses, and you'll be good to go.